how do you go about saving a dying company? You make it go fast. And there is no better explanation of this principle than Cadillac's V series. Now, a long time ago, in the 50s and the 60s, Cadillac was the quintessential luxury car maker in the US and arguably in the world. They were long, they were big, and they were beautiful. But by the time the 80s came along, that wasn't really the case. They were geometric, they were slow, they were big, and they were awful in every way. And then came the Germans, with Audi, BMW, Mercedes stealing away all their customers, and Cadillac's sales plummeted off a cliff like a Cadillac at the end of that one movie that I can't name right now. I'm sure I'll show a clip of it. Anyway, GM didn't want to let their darling Cadillac sink after 100 years of being in the business. So, they began a full company refresh, a $4.3 billion refresh at that. And they began in 1999 with the Evoque, the Evoque concept. This was a completely different direction from Cadillac. It wasn't a luxury executive sedan, it was a sports car. Now, it was only a concept, but it became the XLR in 2000. It was a two-door sports car. And, by the way, there was this new product being developed deep in the heart of Cadillac called V series. V series took the XLR, which was a good car. It was built alongside the Corvette, so it had a good chassis, but it was lacking in the performance overall, especially for said price. And V series turned it into a monster. It had a 443 horsepower V8 and made 414 foot-pounds of torque and did 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. In 2004. That ain't bad. And then, if that wasn't enough, another part of Cadillac's refresh was their brand new modernized executive sedans. And V series hopped on that as well, starting with the CTS-V. This ordinary family sedan on the outside secretly had a monster engine underneath it, a Corvette Z06 V8, putting out 400 brake horsepower, and you think it's a muscle car, so it can't turn. You're wrong, because this thing was fantastic around the corners. In fact, it was so good, they stiffened the chassis and the suspension by 27% so it could go around corners. And then a year later, the even bigger version of the CTS, aka the STS, was launched in 2005, and the V version had 469 horsepower and did 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. That is only a second slower than the Porsche Carrera GT. Now, the STS was discontinued shortly afterwards, but the CTS, that stayed put, and the Gen 2 CTS-V got even more in the way of options. They had a sedan, a coupe, and best of all, a wagon. A wagon with a 556 horsepower Corvette ZR1 engine in it. And it did 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds, and a quarter mile in under 12. It was the first sedan in history to break the 8-minute barrier at the Nürburgring. That's as fast as a Nissan GT-R R32. And with so much success and performance, there's no economic recession causing the entire financial collapse of the US economy that could stop this vehicle, right? Never mind. But don't worry, production was back in 2010, and in 2015 they had this thing nailed down to a science. The third gen CTS-V had an even bigger 6.2 liter supercharged V8, making 640 brake horsepower, and it had a top speed of 200 miles an hour. A Cadillac had a top speed of the Ferrari F40 and a 0 to 60 time of 3.6 seconds. A Cadillac was now one of the fastest sedans ever made. And then a year later, it got a twin. The ATS-V was a smaller version in the compact executive class, and as a result had a smaller 3.6 liter turbocharged V6. But don't think it was slow. No, it had 464 horsepower and 450 torque, 0 to 60, 3.7 seconds, with a top speed of 190 miles an hour. Now, you can't talk about the CTS-V and the ATS-V without talking about racing. Because, for the first time since 1955, a Cadillac went motor racing in the SCCA World Challenge Series with the CTS-V. And that thing entered in 2004, and guess what? It won the championship in 2005 and 2007. And then it got another, the Mark II CTS-V, won the championship back-to-back in 2012 and 2013, until it was superseded by the ATS-V when that took its place. And what did the ATS-V do its debut year in 2015? It dominated and won the championship as well. Not bad, Cadillac. Not bad. And it's not like those vehicles would ever be discontinued. Oh. Yeah. Both the CTS-V and the ATS-V were discontinued in 2019. Yay. But the 2019 V Series got one heck of a send-off with the final iteration, the CT6-V, having a 4.2 liter V8 with 550 brake horsepower, 627 foot-pounds of torque. Only this time, it was all-wheel drive, and it had magnetic suspension. Meaning, it could put its power down without going through 5 sets of tires. And that was discontinued too. So, what's next for Cadillac and the V Series? Well, they have announced that they are not giving up on the V Series because, guess what? Cadillac sales are slumping a bit. And they need a new way to reinvigorate the brand yet again. So the response is a little underwhelming. The CT-V comes out next year with a 3-liter V6 twin turbocharged, 355 horsepower and 400 torque. And you're thinking, hang on, that's not very much. That's not the end of it. The CT-V is an even smaller sedan, also coming out in 2020, with a turbocharged i4. What? And it makes 320 horsepower and 370 torque. Why is the CT-V having half the cylinders and half the horsepower of the CTS-V? Well, that's not the end of it, because it's much better around the corners. Unlike the CTS-V, which was, quite put it, a brick with a boatload of power, this is a proper sports sedan. It has 50-50 weight distribution, magnetic suspension, a limited slip diff, and a fully functioning rear lip spoiler. And you think that they're forgetting about it? No, because Cadillac, for the first time, has developed an own brand spanking new V8 called the Blackwing. And people are speculating they're gonna put said Blackwing V8 into the CT4 and CT5s. So, Cadillac's future, although it's without the CTS-V that brought it international recognition, is looking mighty bright in the future.